Okay. I'm Sarah. I'm Sarah, the Communications Core Coordinator, and this is Angela Kreps from Kansas Bio, and she's our speaker today. She's going to give a presentation about Kansas Bio and biomedical research in the state, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to her. What was that? And if you guys, while we're presenting, if you have questions, you can ask questions, but if you can, go ahead and mute your microphones during the conference in case, so you don't hear any background noise or anything like that. So, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to Angela.
Okay, great. And I'm going to see if I can go to school a little bit on how we work the technology here so you can see what I'm looking at on my screen too. Okay, great. So you all can see the slides. I'm going to go ahead and put those on to full screen mode. Kansas Bio is glad to be here, so I thank you all for joining us today. I'm a K-State grad, so a shout out to all the K-Staters in the room. Right? And welcome to all the others as well. I've certainly become a fan of all of your research work. In being involved with the K-INBRE Symposium each of the last 5 years. So it's really remarkable to us. What our primary job is for the K-INBRE Symposium is to bring together funding for awards. So each year we issue 10 research scholarship awards that are unencumbered. You can use them however you want. And we utilize industry judges to view all of the posters and then to make those awards on a competitive process. So we've been delighted to see the quality of the research work that has been, that continues to be present at the K-INBRE Symposium, and just delighted to see the growth in the symposium with such quality work projects. So I want to thank you for that and for all the work that you all are doing relative to the symposium. So today I want to talk a little bit about BioResearch Central and Kansas Bio's role in BioResearch Central, because I think it shares with you a good picture of jobs and opportunities in the bioscience industry in Kansas and throughout the Kansas City region. So I'm going to go through a number of slides here, and then we're going to leave enough time at the end for questions. So then we'll unmute the mic so that we all can all be interactive, and I want to make sure and allow enough time there at the end for whatever questions you have. BioResearch Central is an initiative that was launched earlier this year after about 4 years of preliminary background work, working to accelerate health innovation through excellence in contract research. And so this is a collaboration of a number of nonprofit organizations, including Kansas Bio, with support from the Bioscience Authority, the KBA. The Kansas Bioscience Authority is a separate organization from Kansas Bio. Kansas Bio is a 501c3. We have about 200 members in bioscience, including about 45% of the BioResearch Central companies. And I'll talk a little bit more about BioResearch Central in just a minute. Like I said, we're one of many organizations who are involved with this initiative. So the Kansas Bioscience Authority, the Kansas City Area Life Sciences Institute, the Kansas City Area Development Council, the Missouri Biotechnology Association, or MoBio, as well as others that we involved in economic development. We have a number of chambers and others that are involved with the initiative too, in addition to the companies. Kansas Bio serves as the voice of the bioscience community in Kansas. And so our job primarily is to educate, to advocate, and to connect. And so you'll see when I'm talking about BioResearch Central why this is so aligned with the work that we do at Kansas Bio, including representing the interests of about 45% of the companies who are part of our members. There are 4 primary areas in BioResearch Central where we focus on a message of delivering quality in getting new drugs and devices to market to improve human and animal health worldwide. So quality is one of the core concepts efficiency in delivering services to get new drugs and devices on the market in human and animal health, reliability and being the trusted partners when pharmaceutical, biopharmaceutical, biotech, and medical device companies outsource work all along that phase, whether it's early stage drug discovery, device development, whether it's non-clinical or preclinical, or safety, efficacy, esoteric testing. It's critically important that we are reliable partners. And the fourth core concept is focusing on delivering products and services that pave the pathway for our future, not only here in the region, but globally in servicing these customers. So about 4 years ago, there was a working group that was formed, and 2 years ago, the Kansas Bioscience Authority, the KBA, stepped up to finance a study. And what we found was that the overall contract R&D service provider market space was estimated to be $32 to $39 billion. And it's broken down into these areas of applied research, non-clinical, clinical, CMC, and then this big category of other. This was what was discovered, and you'll see the notation in the lower right-hand corner, by Tufts, the Center for the Study of Drug Development. The KBA funded a study, and it was a nationwide study that Tufts conducted to compile this estimated market size. And what was so intriguing to Tufts was the fact that this market was underestimated. It's about 4 times bigger than was previously thought. And so the market size reflects the enormous amount of growth in outsourced services or contract R&D in these categories. And we're going to break it down further based on the research work that Tufts did. So again, referring back to the Tufts study, you look into these 5 categories, the number of companies, and this is within the United States, so this is nationwide, not a global study. Applied research, without 500, non-clinical, I won't go through all of these areas, but you can see where there are a tremendous amount of opportunities in not just clinical research, but in applied, non-clinical, and CMC, and then this other category, which is a combination of a whole bunch of other services related to, market validation, regulatory approval, business development, sales, marketing, some of those consulting services. So now we want to look at, and this is again from the Tufts study, overall, are these privately held companies or publicly traded companies? And what was amazing and surprising, I think, to us in receiving this data back from Tufts is the number of privately held firms that are conducting this work. So you see it's really remarkable, about a 70-30 split overall, with the number of companies that are publicly traded being the minority and privately held companies gaining a majority of the market share in the outsourced R&D work. So when we compare the share of the total revenue generated by the market space, you can look at those comparisons. And this again is based on the study that Tufts conducted. It was about 18 months of research. They did some analysis of publicly available data. Then they did a number of individual surveys as well. So again, I kind of point to these areas of growth in non-clinical CMC and this catch-all other. So within these companies, I think what's interesting to us here is the size of the companies. You look at, how many companies are in the space, what is the revenue per company, and you look at the number of employees in each of the companies. So they're relatively small privately held companies for the most part. And then what is just shocking, I think, to most of us in business is looking at the revenue generated per employee in these areas. I mean, that's a productivity number that really is, I mean, it goes to show why the jobs in this space pay so well, is because the revenue per employee is so extravagantly high compared to, you know, the other productivity measures in the market. So then when we look at the financial analyst market size comparisons, so what the Tufts study found compared to Jefferies, Goldman Sachs, and UBS, which were the other financial analysts that look at sizing this market, you can see where where the numbers stack up. And some have said that this study is fairly conservative with regard to how it's sizing the market, the Tufts study. So what we decided to do once we got back this information, there was a survey conducted by Simon Management Group. We, through that study, surveyed 68 of the contract research organizations and contract service providers. And then we combined that with the information from Tufts and determined that it made sense for us to launch an initiative, the Bio Research Central ultimately being the branded name for this initiative. And we're in the formative stages right now for identifying what will the initiative do. So let's just talk about Bio Research Central. It's based in the Kansas City region, but it's a pretty broad regional definition covering a significant amount of the geography in both Kansas and Missouri, ranging from Manhattan all the way to Columbia, north to St. Joe, and southwest to Wichita, and southeast to Springfield. So you'll see those dots on the map. What we've identified is over 90. Tufts would tell you there's 100 CROs, and that's contract research organizations and contract service providers. We're categorizing those both as CROs throughout this regional area. And these companies are experienced in a breadth of the R&D services. And what was unique that was uncovered in the Tufts study is that our diversity in our region is fairly unique. The other clusters, Tufts studied the top 15 metropolitan areas and found greater diversity in Kansas City than in any of the other clusters. So what's unique to us about that is that a drug development or device development company could come to Kansas City and have access to services pretty much all along the continuum of R&D and getting a product to market or getting a product commercialized. So the services that are provided are quite extensive. The other factual nugget was that the experience provided by the companies here in the Kansas City region is significantly greater. We have companies that have been in business longer. And again, going back to the data, which show that, you know, these are relatively small companies, privately held. Our companies have longer tenure, and they also have very tenured employees within those companies. Again, reasons why companies have been coming here for so long to get the work done.
Is that, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but is that a reflection of the area in terms of the way the company is run that promotes longevity? I mean, what makes us unique in that regard?
Okay, so we're just in a process of trying to better understand why we are what we are, why Bio Research Central is here. Here's what we do know. We do know that the presence of Marion Laboratories had a great deal of impact on the formation of these companies. They've been around for, 20 or 30 years, most of these companies. And because I think of our proximity in the Midwest, you just have a tendency for people to have a little bit more stickiness. Stickiness being actually a technical term
A good thing.
for, you know, how people stay employed when they find a fit in terms of career. So the great news about that is that we have, you know, very experienced companies that have been involved integrally.
Bye-bye.
And I think we have a new site that just joined us. So if you wouldn't mind muting your mic, when we get to the end, we'll open that up for Q&A. Welcome. We're glad you're here. We're talking a little bit about BioResearch Central, which is a new initiative, a conglomeration of between 90 and 100 CROs, contract research organizations, and contract service providers in the broader Kansas City region. And what we found in the research, this research that was funded primarily through the Kansas Bioscience Authority. I'm here representing Kansas Bio. Kansas Bio is a separate organization from the KBA. The KBA funded a study with Simon Management Group and then with Tufts, the Tufts Center for the Study of Drug Development, Tufts CSD. And they're in the process of sharing that market research was conducted over the last 18 months with a number of professional publications. I think that the most recent publication is in this month's issue of Applied Clinical Trials, and it's about resizing the contract R&D services market. So what we found through this research, sort of getting back to the slide that you see in view, is that BioResearch Central, these companies here in our region, have been involved integrally in getting at least 60 of the top pharmaceutical markets or top pharmaceutical products on the market. That is a big number. We also have identified over the last 3 years, so recently, these companies are working for 16 of the top global pharmaceutical companies. So we're not just providing services to, you know, a lot of startups within the region. These are companies that are providing services as top-tier service providers to the big pharmaceutical companies. And what statistically is of interest to many people inside and outside the region is that this workforce is 9,000 people strong and generating about $1 billion in annual revenue. So it's a big cluster for the region. And we also have these leveraged assets, the access to the animal health corridor, accounting for more than a third of the total sales of the $19 billion animal health industry. That adds to accessibility and utilization of these contract service providers. And what we're seeing is that the animal health corridor, as it grows and new companies come here, that we're growing the service providers in the animal health space. If you look at the addition of companies like Argenta, Alchira Bio, I mean, those are companies that work almost exclusively in animal health as CROs. And so they've added to BioResearch Central and working exclusively in the animal health space. We also have access to the 20 area universities offering undergraduate, graduate, and postdoc degrees in bioscience-related programs. Many of you out there are part of what gets marketed to these companies when we're trying to attract them to the region, and they're interested in the fact that we have a very sophisticated employee population that's coming out of well-trained programs that deliver well-trained, degreed and pedigreed associates for their companies. So therein lies, you know, sort of what we're talking about. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of an upcoming event. It's on November 15th, and we are cordially inviting all of you who are interested in learning a little bit more about BioResearch Central. It's a summit. It's on November 15th, so in about 6 weeks. It's at the Ritz-Charles in Overland Park. There will be industry leaders, so CEOs, top executives, researchers from at least 32 of the CROs that we're talking about that make up BioResearch Central, who will be giving podium presentations and participating in panel discussions. And you can register online at bioresearchsummit.org. So I wanted to take you to that site and show you what that looks like when you'll get there. So I'm going to see if I can flip over to that. And in a moment, you'll see this is the site. This will share some additional information with you about BioResearch Central. So this is bioresearchcentral.com, where we're sharing information about what we talked about today. You can click on the summit to get information about the summit, and then you can register. And I'm not going to take you through that process, but you get what I'm saying. Let me get back to where we were. You can also look at the companies on this site. You can look at the companies that comprise the BioResearch Central. We've actually set up a Google map so you can identify one of these companies, look at MRI Global, see the services that they provide. You can do that for any number of the companies that are here. And you can also access a printed directory. So I'm going to go ahead and, if the system will allow me, pull that up. And you can access this, or if you care to print it, you can access the information. This is a directory listing of all the 90 plus companies. You'll have the company name, where they're located, what their area of expertise is, who's the primary contact. You'll see their phone number, an email address, and a website. In as much as we can, we've archived all of that information here in a multi-page document so that you can access information and conduct research on these individual companies. Let me also flip back to another tool that's available on this site. Is a database with a service called Pharma Loco, and it's asking me to update my profile, which I don't really want to do. So you can go there and enter search information, and it will allow you to search the database of companies, and you can find out more. What I wanted to do today was make sure that we had enough time. We've got still about half an hour left in our presentation to take questions from you, so we can either talk about some of these companies individually, some of the work that they're doing, at least in terms of what I'm familiar with, and then we could talk specifically about jobs within these companies, the type of work that they're doing. So I'm going to ask you to take your mute off your phone lines, and while you're doing that, I'll just give you a quick highlight of what the space looks like in terms of the companies that are providing services. Are ranging everywhere from do you want me to turn off the pictures?
If you want them to see you, do you want to see
Let's make it more interactive in that way. So I go here and I hit stop.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're back, and so I think this will maybe be a little bit easier for us to chat about some of these companies. These are companies whose names you would recognize. I mean, companies like PRA and Quintiles. They do phase 1 clinical trials. They also work for sponsors in doing clinical trials that are in later phases in 2 through 4. But we also have companies whose names that you might not recognize, like Xenometrics. Xenometrics is about 90 employees down in Stillwell, Kansas, just south of Kansas City metro area. And they work exclusively in the non-clinical space. So they're conducting the early stage research in animals before, before the drug or device would get to phase 1 trials, whether that's with humans or with animals. There are other companies like Beckloff Associates, and their work is primarily in regulatory approval. They typically get involved with a new target early in the development stage. If you look at this, it takes 15 years to get a new drug to market. So the folks at Beckloff get involved early on in developing a regulatory pathway, looking at market validation in addition to some of the early stage work. You have other companies along the way that are involved with lab services. So companies like Kansas City Analytical Services, where they conduct assays. So there are other companies that are involved in safety, efficacy, esoteric testing. So there's a real diversity of services that are provided. And since, going back to the data, many of these companies are small, they're very nimble. And they're also incredibly focused on that phase of development, which enables them to deliver the type of outsourced services that these companies are looking for. So as you could imagine, with that kind of diversity of contract services, there are layers of different kinds of jobs that are available. And this is actually the fastest growing segment of employment in the biosciences in Kansas. I mean, we've seen steady growth year to year, and in the most recent Battelle report, so the Biotechnology Industry Organization in Washington, D.C., conducts a biannual report through Battelle of the size of the bioscience industry on a state-by-state basis. What we found through the most recent report that was issued in June of 2012 was that the industry in Kansas is growing at twice the national average. And this is because of the amount of job growth that's happening in this space, in contract research organizations and contract service providers. So what questions do you all have?
Angela, this is Mike Madden. I'm at Fort Hayes. And sorry about being late hooking on, but I had a student send a question with me, and they were wondering how would be the best way to hook up for an internship with the companies that you're working with. Is there a directory or something I'm not familiar with? They met a number of those people at the last K-INBRE meeting. They've made a good showing at the K-INBRE meetings, but they wondered if there was a list or maybe somewhere on your website they could look for internship or maybe career opportunities.
That's a great question, Mike, and thank you for bringing it up. So last year we won a grant from the NSF to develop a directory of programs and internships. So we're just in the process. I wish I could tell you you can go one place and you can find everything you need, but I can't tell you that right now. We're just putting that together, and we hope that by the end of 2013, that directory will be online so that you will have access to that. In the meantime, we are conducting surveys of companies that have internship opportunities available, and we're just working on an ad hoc basis with the universities and community colleges and even high schools that have programs focused on bioscience. So if that's something that we'd like to do, offline on a one-on-one basis, we can do that. What other questions are out there? I think we have a question here in the room.
Yeah. So this is Dr. Wright. Thanks everybody for coming. There's a lot of great things to take away from this. One, I had no idea the number of companies that were within this particular area. That was stunning to me. The second thing to take away is the average salary per employee was terrific. I mean, I'm stunned by that. I'd like to see what the breakdown is for entry-level folks, but I do know that students that we train here at the medical center in the clinical rotations, they seek out those jobs because they pay a lot more than we do in academia, and we have to compete for those in the academic world. So I know that those are very lucrative and well-sought-after jobs. The question I have is, I'm going to guess that part of what you're doing is providing a resource for these companies for a labor force? And what is the structure in that? Where do these companies, as they go, look for a labor source, and how do you guys work with them in that regard?
Well, so one of the other things that resulted from getting this NSF grant was we became aware that there's no centralized job board, if you will, for bioscience in Kansas. So we're working with a local company. It's a startup company called Skill Sniper, and to see if we can develop a portal where some of the accessibility will be given to both companies and to students and employees who are looking to become gainfully employed. The way it works right now is we've got a group set up on LinkedIn, and I would encourage all of you to join that group. It doesn't cost anything to join. You set up your profile with your skills and competencies. You can add your picture, those kinds of things. For those of you who are already familiar with LinkedIn, I'm sorry I'm being so rudimentary, but you can join this group. It's called Heartland BioBreak, and you can join that group. There are about 400 people that are part of that group, and you'll see job postings float into that group. So there will be notices that come out when members of the group post jobs. I have seen a few internships, back to the earlier question, get posted that way too. So it's a great way for you to network. And so what we've done with that group on LinkedIn is to try to create an environment where people can get some interaction. So you can look at people who are fellow group members, you can reach out to them and ask them questions about their work or their research that they're involved with. But you can also start discussion. You can start a discussion on LinkedIn about a particular project that you might be working on, or a particular area that is of interest to you, to see if there are others who might be interested in that area. You also have the opportunity through that LinkedIn group. Once a month we have a face-to-face get-together, and everybody who's in the LinkedIn group will get a personal invitation. It's typically toward the first of the month, and most of those face-to-face meetings are held in the Kansas City area. But last month we had a bio break. That's what we call it, a Heartland bio break. We had one in Manhattan, and we have one scheduled for later this month in Wichita. And as long as we can find a way where we can get people together, we'll continue to do that. And it's purely for networking. I mean, there's not a program that's conducted together with that. So until we get something online, we're relying on more of these, traditional networking types of environments to make, to get people connected. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, but maybe give you a little bit of information with regard to a resource. I would also say that, to your earlier point about salaries, when we looked at the Battelle report that was released this year, we found that to be very true. The bioscience jobs in Kansas are paid on a much higher average wage than all the other jobs. They're about approaching 40 to 45% higher. So the skills that are required of the workforce in these bioscience jobs is at a higher level, and then compensation it commiserates with that experience. So it really is a ripe career path for those who. And sorry for the academicians who'd like to keep all of those. I don't know. We call them smarty pants. That'd be you. That are, industry is eager to tap into your skills and abilities, and so we're hoping to develop more ways to get, direct channels for you to access the workforce opportunities, but they're definitely out there. You look at a company like SIVA. SIVA works in the animal health space with their North American headquarters in Lenexa, and they have added 220 jobs over the last 3 years, and these are really nice, high-paying research jobs. So that's just one example. There are other companies that have hired a significant number of people too. I mean, I mentioned Quintiles earlier. Over the last 5 years, they've added 700 people at their Phase 1 and headquarters unit in Overland Park. So those are just a couple of examples. PRA. has added at least 200 jobs as they expanded their phase 1 unit and added a number of research positions. But there are also technical positions in IT and statistical analysis. I mean, there are just a huge variety of the types of jobs that are available in the industry. What other questions are out there?
Angela, this is Tim Burnett at Emporia State University.
Hi, Tim.
I'm excited to hear about the channels that the efforts that you're going on to establish channels between local companies and graduates of local universities. I wonder, kind of related to that, if there's any talks or efforts being directed at allowing some connections between the faculty at those universities with the companies to sort of evaluate and tweak our training programs to make sure that we're training our students in the techniques and giving them the skills that are needed by these companies.
That is a great question, Tim. And let me tell you what we've been working on. And I'd love to get some feedback from those of you who are involved in the group today. So we conducted, 2 years ago, we conducted a survey of our industry members to identify skills and competencies that they were needing, asked them to project out over the next 3 to 5 years. And what we found was that there are some areas where there are not specific training programs that have been developed. And that led to the development with a Wired grant for a biomanufacturing course that is offered through maybe Johnson County Community College, Metropolitan Community College, to try to get some early exposure and awareness among the students that are involved in their lab tech training and their vet tech training. But what we found is that biomanufacturing course works better in an environment where it gets customized for these companies. So what the challenge is for us now is to identify where there are enough common denominators in the training that's required to see if there are specific courses. You look at some new courses that have come online, some at all of the universities, I think, who are participating here over the last 5 years. I mean, as we've been going to itemize the training courses that are available, because that's another thing that we're trying to do, is to try to make people aware of where they can go to get the training that's available within their area. There's been a lot of specialization that happens at those programs, whether it's animal health specific, or whether it's biomanufacturing, or whether it's human health and clinical trials management. So, you have a very good question. How can we keep industry aligned with what's happening in our universities where we're training the talent? And what I keep hearing from industry is they want a lot more specialization, a lot more customization. And what I hear from our friends in the university is that, we need to have broad-based programs that, aren't as specific. So it's been a little bit challenging. So what we've done at Kansas Bio is we have joined, one of 7 states who've joined a new consortium that is the Council of State Bio Institutes. We don't have a bio institute in Kansas. An institute is focused on bringing together the needs of industry and the training that's available through higher ed institutions across the state, and finding a way to put those things together. What we're hoping that we can access are some best of class programs that have already been established in some of those other states. So we formed this group about 6 months ago, and in November we're going to have a meeting of 45 different states to bring together all of the programs that are available in direct workforce training and entrepreneurial skill development and K through 12 programs, and look at those things in a wholesome view, and identify if there are programs that could be then scalable with our partners back in our own respective states. So I'm hoping that that will lend us some insight with regard to strategies for surveying industry, or maybe taking some national trends among the companies in industry and being able to share that with our educational partners back here in the state. With that framework, does that elicit any ideas on your part, Tim, or any of the other folks who are involved in the call with how you might inform us to get you what you need?
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I think of in trying to get that information from the companies would be, just even like a panel of some sort that could even come to our campus, or we could visit them and say, this is what we're doing. Is this meeting your needs? Because right now the way we have to evaluate is whether or not our students are getting jobs at those companies. Like,
right.
Then obviously we're doing something correct if they're getting hired.
Right.
And sometimes we can contact those former students and say, what were the things that we did as part of your curriculum that you found most helpful once you were in the job for a year? We get some of that information. But it's really rare that we get information, from the people that are doing the hiring, or even information as little as, of all the last hires for these companies over the past year, how many of them actually came from these 20 local universities. That kind of information I think would be very helpful to us.
So we do have access to some hiring managers. We have an HR roundtable, and there are 8 to 10 bioscience companies that are involved in that. I know that that's a subset. It's a conglomeration of big companies as well as some small companies. So we have on that roundtable we have SIVA, SAFC, Bayer, Hills Pet Nutrition, Pro Pharma Group. I'm a little bit at a loss as to the other names, but so there are these 8 to 10 companies that have been involved on this HR roundtable. Would it be such that maybe this group could come up with some questions that we might like to ask of that HR roundtable, and see if we could either have a survey developed, have them respond to the survey and share it with you, or even have the potential to get a dialogue like this going with you, maybe at the symposium or.
Absolutely. I think that we can find ways to do that either through a written form, and what we'll do is Sarah and I will work on that and try to give it some thought in terms of what might be the best mechanism to sort of do that. But certainly opening a dialogue with these groups would be helpful, and then also it might, I think maybe a dialogue at first to sort of see what their needs are and what our needs are, and how do we get at the same table and develop that. I think would be, the K-INBRE could help facilitate that. So.
And it might be something that we could, with some of the funds from this NSF grant, or look at maybe an expanded, collaborative approach to maybe get some additional funds. We might be able to build out capacity to conduct more surveys
Sure.
like that,
Sure.
and then share that with you as partners in this process.
Absolutely.
Angela.
I'm sorry.
This is-
Been at the K-INBRE meetings before?
Say again.
Did the
What was
panel attend a previous K-INBRE meeting or symposium? I think the students really enjoyed trying to visit with that panel, if possible.
Okay, that would be something for us to include in the discussion.
Yeah.
K-INBRE is going to be in Manhattan this year,
In
right?
Manhattan, yeah, in January. And I don't know if it'll work for this Manhattan or this January, but in the future we probably can develop that.
Right.
But yeah, we certainly, I think that would be, a terrific component to the meeting, is to have representatives there who are associated with HR and have a chance to meet with students and have students ask questions. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I think there's
Angela?
another question. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Virginia Ryder at Pittsburgh State. And one of the things that I think would be useful for us to know is when these companies are they hiring local talent, or do they have to go out of this region? And if so, what's lacking in potential employees for this region?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's one that we continue to hear. Because we do hear from the local hiring managers about some gaps in accessibility to the right talent. I'll give you a very specific example. Toxicology. Is anybody out there, show of hands, who's going to work in toxicology?
Not
and
us.
No hands go up, right? That is one very specific area where we know that finding talent has been difficult. And so, I mean, your question is good. If we could identify the places where we have the job descriptions now. 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't have industry job descriptions that were very universal. But we've been working on that in the industry, and we now have some job descriptions that are a little bit more universal. So that does help facilitate communication and a dialogue about what's needed. What's missing, though, is in addition to that job description, is a clear articulation of skills and competencies. And there does seem to be a disconnect when we're talking with hiring managers about skills and competencies and degrees. Because many times they're finding that the two things don't necessarily come together married. That you may need a certain set of skills and competencies that you might not even get with a master's or PhD candidate, because you're looking for something specific like training on a particular piece of equipment or utilization of the data as a result of that is part of that everyday job. So I think there is an enormous amount of opportunity for us to get a better understanding of skills and competencies, so that we can then share that with our academic partners, so that then you know how that articulates into what you're learning in the classroom. And I don't know that there is a silver bullet on that. I think this will be part of this consortium, this CSBI. Hopefully we'll learn from some of the established interactions. There's a pretty extensive industry academic partnership in the state of California. It was funded with about $8 million from the Department of Labor, so they had a lot of grant money to establish that connection. We don't have the benefit of that here in Kansas, so we're just trying to piece it together. And what's challenging is, and you may have run into this, industry people get surveyed, a lot, and so sometimes their ability to respond to surveys isn't as on target or as timely or as focused as what you'd like it to do. I think there's a role for Kansas Bio in that, in trying to solve that conundrum, but we have to find a way to fund that model so that we can put the appropriate resources to it to get you what you need. So I guess to answer your question more directly, a lot of the talent is coming from outside the region. Now, we are seeing that with some of the training programs that have come online within the last 3 years or so, that we are seeing a lot more local talent being picked up, but that would be more in the lab environment. Maybe not as much in the higher level positions. Did that answer your
Thanks.
question?
Yeah, thank you, and I hate to hear that. I hate to hear that they have to go outside of this region, but it is what it is.
And I think that is... Go ahead.
I was going to say that the internship efforts that you're talking about in the NSF grant are certainly going to help that, because the students will now get the specific training they need as part of the internship. So that's actually making a step in addressing that gap.
I do think that this is, part of figuring out what steps need to be in place to solve the problem. Because obviously we have some of the most highly well-educated students coming out of our research universities. I mean, we have great talent that's coming on board. It's just finding that fit. And if we could pursue those channels, like if there were an awareness of more of the internships that are currently available, and if we were to make internships easier for companies, because that's one of the other challenges, is how can you make an internship easier to manage? How do you source for talent? So that's part of this NSF opportunity. Is we need to make more people aware of what the internship opportunities are, and then we've got to ease the management challenge within the companies for sorting through and then sourcing the talent that's going to go into those programs, and then managing the talent through that internship process. And it's probably going to become more competitive, which is great, right? But at the same time, you hope that you would get more internships coming online. The only way to get more internships coming online so that more students can have the opportunity is to make internship management easier. And that's another tough one to handle. And we're hoping to get some insight on internship management through this consortium. And hopefully we'll be a little bit more educated about that after this day-long meeting in November. So I don't know if that's really good news, because it's not now, but we are identifying some places where we can start to chip away at some of the challenges, and then we've got to find the funding for those programs to work. I think we have about 5 more minutes before we're scheduled to wrap up. So if there are any other questions, we'd be happy to try to tackle them. There's one more here in the room.
This is Dr. Wright. I'll just make a couple of comments. I think this is, here at the medical center with the graduate students, there's sort of a current level of depression about the future of becoming a bioscientist and getting a degree and going on to be a tenure track faculty at an institution, and the lack of NIH support that may be available in the future. And I think this presentation is actually incredibly uplifting, that there are tremendous opportunities, and I am guilty as anyone of sort of shifting the way we think about training students for a very different workforce. And this is actually incredibly encouraging that you have resources available to you to go and start to look at the different companies that are available. You have time to understand and be trained in ways that make you marketable. And I think that's incredible. I think that there are great opportunities, and it's really represents a big shift from the traditional sort of view that we and many have held, that if you're going to go to graduate school or go on or be in biosciences, this is the course you need to take. And that's completely breaking down. I think there are a lot of different opportunities, and I think I think it's incredibly exciting that there are a tremendous number of opportunities, and so hopefully you'll utilize it. I certainly am going to go look at the website that she talked about, because there's a tremendous number of interesting things there. I think that I'll learn a lot. And then I'll finally add very quickly that if there's any faculty out there that have any great ideas and are looking for partners with no particular skill sets but need to take on a partner for their startup company, I am available. I keep thinking of those salaries that were listed per employee. So if you've got a great idea and you need somebody to go on board with you, again, with no particular skill set, I don't provide anything or offer anything, please contact me. It's time to start our company.
I think it is really, it's a good point. There are there are a significant number of companies that are growing. And the companies that are providing these outsourced services, I think, is the easiest access point, because it seems like with the growing trend in outsourcing, this is going to continue to create more jobs and opportunities going forward. So what I'm hearing from you all, just to sort of recap what I've picked up on today, is that we need to continue to explore the communication channels between industry and our academic partners. And if we were to focus, it sounded like to me that we need to focus on creating a direct pathway for accessing internships and a pathway for accessing jobs. So what are not just the internships, but being able to see what the jobs and opportunities are within the companies, but then also maybe to look at getting access to information, the intelligence that's within the bioscience companies about skills and competencies. What's needed that they are or are not getting from the talent that's currently being delivered through our local universities.
That's great.
Am I hearing right?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's very good.
Yeah. Good
Okay.
summary. Good summary.
Okay, so I think that gives me a great deal of insight as to how we can help you as that bioscience industry organization. I'm also wanting to just put one more plug in for the symposium. And if there are any thoughts that you all have about the ways that we're running those, those research awards, the 10 awards that we give each year, the industry evaluation for that, and I think continuing to talk about ways that we could leverage the symposium to assist you in gaining access to information from industry. We're here to help and want to collaborate on that. So, off to your noon o'clock appointments.
All right.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having us. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
talk.
Have a nice day.